You are pushing as hard as you can. You are giving it absolutely everything you have. You feel the tension in your shoulders and the ache in your jaw from pure, sustained effort. Yet, the wall in front of you simply refuses to move, no matter how hard you strain against it.
This is the feeling of maximum effort. It is the bitter definition of absolute failure.
The dominant culture of achievement insists that this strain is not just normal, but required for any meaningful success.
You are told to grind harder. You are told to hustle relentlessly, no matter the personal cost.
You must simply push harder than everyone else if you truly want to win the prize.
This is the myth of brute force, the idea that willpower is a hammer for every single problem.
We are sold biographies of billionaires who succeeded by outworking everyone, sleeping less, and demanding more.
They tell you failure is your fault. You just did not embrace the painful, relentless grind.
So you try again, deciding to double down on all your efforts, convinced this is the only way. You wake up earlier, you stay later, and you sacrifice your rest, all in the name of trying harder.
You believe that if you apply enough force, the obstacle must eventually break down and yield to you.
But the wall does not move. Instead, you just feel yourself starting to crack.
This advice fails because it mistakes the symptom for the disease, confusing sheer effort with actual forward progress.
It assumes you are a machine, but you are a human being with a finite amount of energy.
Here is the truth that hustle culture never wants to admit. Trying harder is actually the least effective way.
It is not a badge of honor, but is instead a symptom of a deeply inefficient and broken system. You are not actually fighting the external task. You are fighting an internal war against yourself. When you apply brute force, you are creating an equal and opposite force called psychological resistance. This is the internal friction that builds up every time you force yourself to do something you hate.
It is the voice that screams, "Stop." It is the exhaustion that feels like lead.
The grind mentality tells you to ignore this voice, to just push through the overwhelming pain. But this internal friction does not just disappear. It compounds, growing heavier with every single forced step. You are essentially trying to drive a car while slamming your foot on the brake pedal. You keep pressing the accelerator harder, wondering why the engine is screaming while you barely even move.
The engine is your limited supply of willpower. The brake is your own compounding internal resistance.
This is precisely why you eventually burn out, feeling defeated and completely blaming your own lack of discipline. It was not a failure of your character. It was a guaranteed failure of the strategy itself.
You were given the wrong manual, one that told you to fight a war that you cannot win.
The secret is that success does not come from overpowering the friction with more brute force.
True, sustainable progress is achieved differently. It comes from removing the friction entirely.
Stop trying to become a person who can withstand more pain and more internal suffering. Instead, you must become an architect who designs a path of least resistance toward your goal.
The entire problem reframes itself when you stop asking, "How can I possibly push harder than this?"
You must start asking a much simpler, more powerful question. What is making this feel so hard?
This psychological shift moves you from being a martyr into the powerful role of a problem solver. You stop treating your energy as infinite and start treating your focus as a precious, finite resource.
You are no longer the source of the problem. You become the designer of the solution.
The relief you are looking for is not found at the end of the struggle.
It is found when you finally give yourself permission to stop struggling and start designing.
This new approach is not a hack.
It is an elegant, sustainable operating system. We can call it the friction audit, and it is the practical application of this truth. Stop looking at the mountain you have to climb. Look at the pebbles in your shoe.
This process begins with a simple, detached observation of your own avoidance, free of any judgment. Your goal is to become a detective. You are hunting for clues, not for flaws.
When you feel that familiar resistance rising, that heavy sigh before you begin the hard task, pause for just a moment and ask yourself that one simple question. What is the real friction here?
You will be surprised by the answer, because the friction is almost never the task itself.
It is something much smaller. It is something logistical or emotional that precedes it.
Let us say you are avoiding your most important project, convincing yourself you could just lack motivation. Trying harder means staring at the screen, forcing yourself, which only builds more resistance. The brute force method fails here. You cannot will away the feeling of being overwhelmed. The easy system is to create an environmental trigger that bypasses this specific psychological friction. You design a new rule. You are not allowed to work on the project today.
That is too big, too scary. That is where the friction is born.
Instead, your requirement is to open the document and write one single, imperfect sentence. Often, that tiny, frictionless start is all the momentum your brain needs to continue the work. This same audit applies to every part of your life, especially the habits you struggle to build.
You want to go to the gym, but you always fail in the morning.
The trying harder myth tells you to set 5 alarms and scream at yourself in the mirror.
The easy system asks, where is the pebble? What is the first point of friction?
The friction is not the workout, which you may even enjoy once you are actually there. The friction is the chaos of the dark morning. Finding your clothes, packing your bag, locating your keys. So you remove those pebbles. You simply eliminate those tiny points of internal negotiation. You design a simple evening ritual where you lay out your gym clothes before you go to bed.
Your water bottle is filled, your bag is packed, and your keys are right beside it. You have now created a frictionless runway, making the path to the door easier than staying in bed.
You did not add more willpower. You simply, and wisely, removed the logistical excuses. This is the core of the system. Stop trying to win the internal argument with brute force.
Just eliminate the argument completely. You must make the right choice the easiest choice.
Stop optimizing for toughness and start optimizing for ease, making resistance obsolete by designing a better path. You are simply auditing your life for these tiny, unnecessary points of frustration and then smoothing them out. This is how you stop fighting yourself and start moving, almost effortlessly, in the direction you desire.
It feels easy, not because you became superhuman, but because you finally stopped making it so hard.
Remember, that feeling of intense strain, of trying harder, is not a badge of honor at all.
It is a critical warning light. It is a clear signal of high friction.
True, sustainable progress is not found in the sheer force of your effort, but in the elegance of your system. You must stop fighting a war against yourself and instead become the architect of your own easy path.
You stop being the martyr of the grind. You become the designer of your own solution.
This psychological shift is the key to finally moving forward without burning yourself out in the process. If this idea of removing friction resonates with you, we explore it further in our next video. We deconstruct a related myth. The perfect system trap is easy, actually.